Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to Career Insights 501. And this is Dr. Loso. Today, we have a special guest, Bill Hurley. He is a project manager, and he's going to talk to us today about his career and what he's up to now. So, Bill, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So, how have you been
Very
doing?
excited. Very well, sir. Been a challenging year so far.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
Okay. I can totally understand that. Same thing with
Yeah.
my job. The end of last year was challenging, and it just ran over into 2023. So I totally get it.
Yes, sir.
So if you could start out by telling us a little bit about who Bill Hurley is.
Cool. As you said, my name is Bill Hurley. I'm a software project manager for a company called Health Edge. Uh, we provide a software package for managed care organizations across all 50 states. I've been in the software business for over 21 years. I've done just about every job there was. As I was saying to Dr. Loso before we came on, I've done just about everything but software engineer. So yeah, if you name it, I could probably point at an experience and tell a story about it. So
Okay.
yeah, and I started out in graphic arts. I actually went to photography school originally. And that led to working in service bureaus and learning graphic arts software systems such as Photoshop, things of that nature. So that's how I got my start. Here I
Oh,
am.
nice. Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting going from like a graphic position to working with software.
Yeah, it kind of started running together in the 90s with the advent of the Macintosh computer and the Adobe packages, Photoshop, Illustrator, things of that nature. And really, it was taking a lot of people that may have been in a pedestrian career to begin with, but it really evolved into them having to learn how to use a computer to continue their career. Such as myself, it really made sense for me to start learning some of these graphic arts packages, and it eventually took me into the software business.
Gotcha.
S- Yeah,
Um, so yeah, we have to talk about a little bit more about how you like transition from the the actual graphic into the software side of that because
sure. Yeah, I was working for a service bureau
mhm,
in the Twin Cities area of Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota. Um, and I was working there, and I had learned this one company's software package for digital printing very well. And just because I was tasked by, I was at a point in my career at the service bureau where I was working, and I had about 6, 7 years in, and my boss basically said, "Hey, why don't you learn how to do this so I don't have to fire you?" So I started learning digital printing, some of the digital management software around digital printing. This is really the advent of the direct digital press. You know, a lot of people refer to this as a a color printer, but it was really
mhm,
much more than that. These were commercial quality machines that were about 20 feet long that printed
mm,
an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper that you can buy off a printer today, right? But these are large, high volume, several thousand copies in an hour type machines. So it was challenging, and eventually what really got me into the software business is quitting that job to go work for the software company that built this software because I became very good at it, and I learned how to troubleshoot. That got me into tech support, and that's how
mm.
I transitioned out of that space into. I started out in technical support years ago, and I would obviously triage digital printing issues over the phone, sometimes online, not very often. That was sort of the beginning all those years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really how I made that jump.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
definitely a reason learn this or get fired to make a
yeah,
transition
yeah.
from one career to
It
another.
changes your perspective rather quickly.
So tell us about a little bit about your educational background and well, I guess it maybe didn't play into your um
It it's funny. It really did not. And the thing you really have to understand, Dr. Loso, is the nature of the IT business, for lack of a better term, back in the Twin Cities back then. It was like if you had experience doing anything, business analysis, quality assurance testing, project management, anything along those lines, you could get a job. And to this day, it is one of the lowest unemployment segments in nationwide, as well as in Texas, Minnesota, California, and New York. So it's quite remarkable how, you start at point A and you end up at point Z and all the experiences in between, and it didn't really involve a 4-year bachelor's degree. However, I am pursuing mine in management of information systems, and I actually have to sign up for classes here pretty quick. So I am finishing my degree, but yeah, it wasn't really
nice.
required. I know another project manager with over 20 years of experience as senior project management, and she is probably very much in demand in her marketplace and her segments because of her experience. Had nothing to do with the fact that she does not carry a bachelor's degree.
Mm-hmm.
So
I,
it
I
can
want
happen, kids.
I want to ask you a little bit more about that, but first I want to ask,
Sure.
are you getting your degree because it's something that you need, or is it just like an intrinsic thing, like just something that you personally want to obtain?
It's more along the lines of something I want. It hasn't really cost me in too many positions in my past. I went through the great, depression of 2009, and that was about the last time where it really affected job possibilities, although not that much. I mean, there just wasn't a market for anybody back then that didn't have a job previous to that time. So it's more so, it's kind of like a sports car.
Hmm.
You want a sports car, you don't need
Yeah,
it. And in this case,
exactly.
in my case, I don't really need it with my experience now, but I want it. It's just something I've always wanted.
Okay, that's cool. So
Yeah.
going back to that about just having the work experience and not degree, do you
Hmm.
think that that's something that's more of a growing trend in the technical sector? Because I see a lot of articles talking about skills over degrees because a lot of companies are having a hard time finding
Yeah.
people with the skills that they need. Like if I take, for example, cybersecurity, almost a
Hmm.
million jobs out there opening in
Yeah.
just the U.S. alone. People aren't coming, I guess, out of college with the skill. So, do you think that that's like something that's going to be more of a common thing in the technical sector as far as hiring?
I don't think I think people with degrees are going to be more common than not. I really see the shift in that because of cybersecurity, among other things. That's a huge hiring sector right now in the technical fields, and really, I don't know how you would get experience in that field without an education.
Hmm.
That and the same goes for like software developer. You really can't become a software developer very easily. I'm
Yeah.
not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying it can't be done easily without that computer science degree, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
But people like business analysts, quality assurance testers, UAT testers, automated testers, those don't really require a degree. I mean, if you're in the business segment and you know the package that they're developing, you can make a nice living for yourself without one.
Hmm.
So it's really paradoxical. It's really 50-50. I think half of the industry is degree required, the other half is not.
Gotcha. I do want to ask you, and you might not know a lot about like the graphic design industry now, since you've been working with
Hmm.
software for a while. But
Yeah,
do you
it's
have
been a minute.
any idea of how it's different from when you first started out to where it is today?
Uh, a little bit. I know that the software packages have evolved. We used to have to take half a day to install Photoshop, for example, on
Hmm.
several CDs before even DVDs were common for an installation. Now you just access it online. It's a web-based application. So
Hmm.
there's that piece of it, but I think also that it's less of a industrial type skill set, and it's kind of come back around to a more artistic skill set.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a lot of people that are in the graphic arts industry are leaps and bounds more talented than a lot of us that were sort of dabbling in that and may not have been fully vested in the artistic world. I think that's kind of come back around. I think you really need to have those strong art skills to compete in for jobs in that sector.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so
Yeah.
tell us a little bit more about the type of things or people that you manage, because I know you said that you've
Hmm.
done everything except for software development. And after hearing your
Yeah.
story, it makes sense why you wouldn't necessarily have gotten to software development.
Sure. The type of people I manage are either from an HR perspective, I'm not their manager. It is a dotted line responsibility between their human resources manager and me as the project manager. They're assigned to my project, and I'm required to give them work direction. Um, I have literally met people from around the world, from the Philippines to Israel to India. And some nearshore folks on Mexico, not as much in my sector, but and then people from across the country. I've traveled crisscross the country several times, and it's a wide variety of folks. And going back to that education question, varying levels of education. Early on in career, I basically had the same job as a guy that went to Harvard.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh
I
wow.
felt I kind of puffed my chest out. I'm like, this guy's the same as me, and he has a 4-year from Harvard, and I got nothing.
Yeah.
I didn't. I didn't. I actually had my associate's degree of arts from in computer graphics, but still, it's not a bachelor's degree from Harvard. So
Yeah.
that made me feel pretty good. So I mean, that's just a small sampling of people I've met. Living here in Texas, you meet a lot of other folks that are in this business. Austin being a big tech hub with Tesla and a number of other companies that have been there for decades,
Mm-hmm.
and Texas is really kind of the new Silicon Valley, um, incorporating nearshore folks in Mexico and offshore folks across the world. It's been very interesting to see, especially during business travel situations where people come from all over the world. I mean, I met a gentleman when I started with this company from India, Hyderabad, India, and he came all the way across. He came all the way to the United States to onboard me. So that was an eye opener a little bit. That
Mm-hmm.
corporate travel has really been quite interesting in the number of people I've met. Um, from an intellectual perspective, it's been very interesting for me.
Have you had to do any international travel?
No, I have not, which is really kind of strange for somewhat of my experiences. But the simple fact that COVID changed our world in more ways than one.
Yeah.
It really built the remote work business, and really sort of reconfigured the need for giant corporate campuses and a lot of business travel.
Yeah.
Mostly it's executives that are going overseas these days, whereas a regular guy might be sent to China to install something, and
Mm-hmm.
get it
Yeah.
running. So I think that international travel is going to become less and less common.
Hmm. That's interesting. I've never thought about that before, but that definitely makes a lot of sense. And especially too with a
Hmm.
lot of companies having locations internationally. So they could
Yep.
maybe just get people there to go to meetings or to install things or what have you. But it's definitely a good thing to point out.
Yeah.
So you've also said that you've done some testing and business analysis as well. Could you talk about the testing part a little bit?
Sure, love to. That's actually been the bulk of my career for a long, long time. I was a consultant tester. I was a staff I literally have held every job title you can, including software quality assurance, including director. So, um, I really started out as a manual hands-on tester. Ingesting requirements into test scenarios and test cases as basic as it can be. Filling out you would fill out a Excel spreadsheet, for example, to build out your tests, to design them, to get them approved by the manager or whatever, and then executing them a number of times in some cases, depending on defect rate and whatnot. Testing has really evolved into a different sort of business. You almost got to be a programmer nowadays because most
Mm-hmm.
shops are doing automated testing with various tools that we don't need to mention, because anybody that's familiar with software testing knows what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really, you're more of a software engineer and test at that point. Hi, this is Bill Hurley, and you're listening to Career Insights 501 with Dr. Loso.
So I do want to ask you a little bit about the AI part piece that you spoke about. So you hear a lot of people say AI is not going to take away. It's not going to, I guess, eliminate the number of jobs. It's going to also create jobs as well. But as far as the testing piece that you
Hmm.
spoke to, do you see any type of jobs that would create where, just say, if it eliminated 10 testers at a company, like what would they be able to transfer into? Like, do you see that being a one for one?
Not a one for one. I don't think so. I mean, and honestly, I think it's too early to tell. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
really, Chat GPT. I mean, guys were using it a year or two ago. I think is when I first heard about the technology. I think a lot of the websites had come out in 21 and 22, so I think it's a little early to tell, but I can see that. I mean, anybody that's done this job long enough really can understand where that fits into the software business, especially the testing market. If and it'll really be a lot of clever programming and probably initially interfacing with some of the automation tools, because a lot of these companies that invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into these test suites and tools, they're going to want to leverage that going forward
Mm-hmm.
until they absolutely can't.
So look, what's up, you all? We had a little technical difficulties during this recording. I was asking Bill about how AI affects his industry, or how he foresees AI affecting his industry. So the audio went out when he started to answer this question. So what you'll hear next is me just having him to follow up or elaborate a little bit more on what he said. So you will miss a few of those details because there's just no way that I could like pick up the audio or get the audio from the service that I was using. But I think you'll get the gist of what he was trying to get at. So that's it. Enjoy the rest of the podcast.
You were talking about the
Talking about AI and testing.
AI, yeah. Um, I don't know if you have more thoughts on that, but I can just kind of like maybe edit out what you said, and we can go to
Sure,
something else
sure.
if you want. Yeah.
No, I just to kind of repeat a little bit. I really see that fitting into the testing space for software. And again, from an economics perspective, a lot of these companies that have invested in these tools, invested in the time it took to build out these suites, they're going to want to leverage that going forward. But and that's where I see AI fitting in the easiest. I think it's ultimately it's really too early to tell how it's going to affect our business. I really see this evolving over the next 5 years, and if we have this conversation 5 years from now, I might have a very different answer.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know
I
what I
think
mean?
it, like you said, it is definitely too early to tell.
Hmm.
But I think at the same time it might be people are on like two extreme ends of the spectrum as far as like
Hmm.
the viewpoint, because I know with Chat GPT when it first came out, a lot of teachers were freaking out about students using Chat GPT to do a lot of, I guess, their assignments or homework or
Right.
whatever.
Absolutely can see that.
Yeah. Um and I think we're just at a point as far as education is that it has to change the way that it is taught or implemented, because
Hmm.
or executed, because I mean we're in an age of like this super computers and technology and artificial intelligence, and it's going to be
Right.
hard for people to compete if they're being taught and educated in a traditional way. So I
Right.
definitely think that some education reform is on the horizon.
I would agree with that. I would absolutely agree with that. I think it does need to change. Kids are basically educated in the same way in 2023 as they were in
Mm-hmm.
1953. I mean,
Yeah.
it really isn't much different. It really, curriculum, technology, obviously changing with the internet and individual devices,
Mm-hmm.
computers, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you can sit your kid down in front of a computer and they can graduate from college in 5 years.
Yeah.
Um, really, that's where it's going to get interesting is how does that affect the educational system? Are we going to be building a bunch of AI programmers?
Mm-hmm.
That's a possibility. You
Yeah.
know, I think when we were talking about cyber, the interesting piece of that too, Dr. Loso, is you were mentioning, darn it, you were mentioning how
The
maybe
shortages.
yeah, right, and then how, where's that going to be? I think we're asking good questions here because the horizon for this is pretty far.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to take us a while to get there, but it's exciting, but it's also disconcerting at the same time. We've all seen the
Yeah.
Terminator, for goodness sake. I mean, that's an extreme example, but right, you know what I'm saying? It started that the concept of that movie started at a very pedestrian area where they were like, oh, we can get this technology to help us defend our country. What a great
Mm-hmm.
idea. Not so much.
Yeah. 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 Terminator, iRobot, all the
Right?
crazy
Oh yeah. Oh, I
dystopian.
forgot about that one. Will Smith. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That was a good one. So it's really going to be interesting to see how our educational system changes, how our software businesses change. I mean, I really, will it get limited because it
Mm-hmm.
becomes too powerful too fast, and will it be
Mm-hmm.
highly regulated?
Yeah.
Maybe this code segments won't be propagated as easily as they are today.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, that's what I mentioned in my post that I, like I said, I put on LinkedIn earlier today,
Hmm.
that there's a lot of thought that needs to go around how it's going to affect, just society, and looking
Right.
at the parameters that needs to be put around artificial intelligence and robotics, because somebody made the comment about, and that's like the way that I look at robotics and AI is that companies are going to heavily invest in it because, like somebody mentioned with the construction thing, is like they can work 24 hours a day. They don't have to have a union. They're
Hmm.
not gonna, talk back, whatever. They're not gonna be. They're just gonna work, do what you say, unless it gets to one of those Terminator, iRobot situation when it's like, look, we working too much. We want to do some of the things the humans are doing.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly. Well, I remember back in the 80s, the car manufacturing business, when they started propagating robots in the car manufacturing factories where they were doing the welding, and
Mm-hmm.
they can build a car, a robot can build a car. There's still plenty of humans working and building cars, and every car factory in the world employs human beings that help build the car. But
Mm-hmm.
from the welding and painting and some of the more labor intensive pieces, there was a whole upheaval in just outright
Mm-hmm.
fear in the automotive industry that all these guys that had 10 years in the UAW, 20 years in the UAW as a painter, as a welder, as this, that, and the other thing, they were all scared they were going to lose their jobs because the robots were coming. Wow.
Yeah.
How did that turn out? Well,
Yeah.
maybe a couple of guys retired, but everybody was sort of retrained and pivoted to something else.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah.
think there's a little bit of that. It's fear of the
Yeah.
unknown. We don't know where it's going to take us.
Mm-hmm.
You and I can be having this conversation a year from now, and we're like, "Oh, remember when we said that? Look
Yeah.
at that. That came true,
Yeah.
or did not
Yeah.
come true. It completely took a different direction." So I think it'll be very interesting. The next 12 months are going to be very interesting in this space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true, because looking at Chat GPT 3 versus version 4, totally different,
Right.
what it can do. Like I saw a
Right.
thing where it took a picture from a notebook and created a website, and then in Chat GPT 4, and then the other was like telling why a picture was funny in Chat GTP 4. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
dang, that's crazy. But 3 was basically kind of like a very advanced search engine,
Mm-hmm.
more or less. And then so
Mm-hmm.
who knows what 5 will be able to do. And now that it's really picking up, and people are, um, I guess, putting more and more information into that database that they're using to build that out. And then you have just a lot of regular people out here looking at ways to use Chat GPT and that
Mm-hmm.
AI technology. So we don't really know how that's going to affect job industries and individuals livelihood and all that, because it could be a big boom for what's left of the middle class. They say it really isn't the middle class anymore, but it could be the rise of the middle class again. So it'll definitely be
Very
interesting to
true.
see. Yeah. So.
Very interesting. Yeah, it will, will it impact class? I don't know. I don't think so. I think the technical
Hmm.
people, the technology trained people, I don't know what exactly your background is but folks that have been working for quite some time. I mean, if it truly is going to take over, hopefully it's going to take 15 years and I'm retired, then I don't care. No, but I'm kind of kidding, but I'm not. That's the thing at the back of all of our heads is like, am I going to lose my job as this evolves?
Yeah.
I don't think I will. I hope not. Um,
Yeah.
but to your point, I think the applications are endless, and we've only
Hmm.
just touched on a couple of interesting segments where it could be easily applied. So,
Hmm.
but then again, my analogy about the car factories, it could very well be just an aid and strictly regulated from there. So
Hmm.
it'll be
Yeah.
it'll be a challenge. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. I don't know if I'm looking forward to it, but it'll be interesting to to see.
Yeah,
Um
I just get too geek. I mean, that's the inner geek, right?
yeah.
New technology comes along, you want to learn as much as you can about it.
Yeah. Yeah, in my mind, it would seemingly go back to like more artistic things and things that
Right.
computers or AI can't technically do. But then I see like Levi's just made an announcement that they're going to be using AI models going forward in the future. Something I saw on the internet, and they've been posting all these models and stuff that are computer generated that look real. So
Oh
and
wow.
just the whole thing with the AI art. So on LinkedIn, I follow a lot of graphic design and art stuff,
Hmm.
because I was kind of into that growing up in early college. So all the controversy around the AI art, a lot of websites and subreddits and groups on Facebook that I follow, they ban the AI art and all that. So it's just interesting to see. We're just
Wow.
definitely entering into, I feel like, a phase of humanity that um is kind of like, I don't want to say going from like sharecroppers to the industrial revolution, but I think it's bigger than that, like the shock, the change, and the shakeup of like our day to day, and just our normality is just so big that we just really don't know. Like I said, I don't think enough thought has been put behind a lot of this technology. What do you do with AI art? Like, how do you protect
Right.
your art? So you have like the what is it called, the stuff that they did with the NFTs. I just took a thing on it.
Intellectual property, or are you referring to
The encryption that they
oh right. Yeah, the blockchain.
blockchain, yeah. So like, are people going to become more educated about that? Is that going to be a big thing? Like, how does all that play into like me taking
Right.
a picture and uploading it to like Facebook and Instagram? Because I see so many people taking other people videos that they've recorded and they share it on their page, and they're getting like hundreds and thousands of millions of followers. And the
Hmm.
person who took this video probably aren't getting but a couple of hundred views on their page, and somebody took it and they're blowing their social media page up. So
Right.
it's just going to be so interesting. I think a lot of legislation is going to be written around like art and
Oh
like
yeah.
creative stuff.
I
Yeah.
I see this becoming highly regulated. Just your art comment, just to build off that. how do you copyright something,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, how do you could copyright this podcast tomorrow, and
Mm-hmm.
you'd be legally bounded, and anybody that would infringe on that would be indemnified. So how does that work in the legal space? That is going to be the key to really moving forward in this individual segments. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
AI in law practice. What if you as a lawyer, and or let's say you're an attorney representing something, and you have to do a mountain of discovery? What's stopping you from using AI to do that? The Chat
Mm-hmm.
GPT modules to do that.
Yeah.
Where you can do hundreds of hours of research in 10 minutes. That's some of that is sort of exciting, but it's also disconcerting at the same time, because like are AI engines going to start writing legal briefs? Who knows?
Yeah.
What are the legal ramifications of discovery or research or anything involved in a legal case? What are the ramifications of the AI engine doing that work?
Mm-hmm.
Because pretty much uh, law libraries are all online. Um, it
Mm-hmm.
would take, and they're huge. They're huge, huge, huge databases, and they're constantly evolving. I have an attorney friend that literally put someone to work for 2 months just doing discovery. What if that can be done in 10 minutes? And
Yeah.
then what are
That's
the
crazy.
ramifications of that, and how are you
Yeah.
indemnified?
Yeah.
That's, those are the questions I'm asking, and that's the kind of the geek factor with that, as where does this apply?
Yeah. You know, I
Excuse
guess I
me.
take it back. It is kind of exciting to see where that's going to go, because that definitely turns a lot of gears in my head. Because at one point
Hmm.
it's like, well, yeah, that just creates a lawyer that specializes in like this AI type of work
Hmm.
or legalities, and then it's like, okay, well, maybe they don't work for 2 months, but they can work for a couple of weeks and like verify all the information that the AI
Right.
came back with. But then it's kind of like, I guess maybe gig work or part-time work, or
Hmm.
so it'll be interesting to see how all that shapes out.
Yeah, and there's a lot of attorneys in the technology space today, so that
Hmm.
they got to be asking these questions too. It's not just
Yeah.
us two. They got. I
Yeah.
would. I would seriously, seriously be asking a lot of questions, and probably hiring a engineer to start figuring some of this stuff out.
Hmm. So I did want to ask you too a little bit just about your analysis part of your career. Your
Hmm.
was it business analysis?
Yeah, I did a lot of business analysis in the financial and healthcare sectors, and that was really interpreting direct business needs into user stories and other artifacts for creating a software project. Everything from a very simple user story in an online tool to writing a 150-page BRD, business requirements document, for a
Mm-hmm.
healthcare claim system, for example. That was highly, highly involved. That involved a number of different scenarios and touched different aspects of their business. Really, to be a good BA, it is best to have experience in the business sector that you're working in. In other words, if a good BA in the banking industry would come from maybe a position in the bank, like a loan officer or a teller, they have those they can design workflows. In some cases, business analysis drives workflow creation, and sometimes it actually changes the business segment that they're in, that they're working on this project for. So my BA experience was just working with the subject matter experts, and building the cases from there, working
Okay.
with all sorts of folks: accountants, lawyers, financial directors. um, Once worked with the senior vice president once of a bank. That was interesting. I worked with another senior vice president of a healthcare system. That was also interesting. So it's really subject matter knowledge in the sector that you want to be a BA in, and then having, obviously, the understanding the science and tools behind business analysis. It's not as evolved as project management. Project management is a very specific science with a very specific process behind, a number of processes behind it. BA is a little more unregulated, if you'll pardon the term, where
Hmm.
if you're a subject matter expert, you can make a living as a BA. I guarantee it. If you wanted to get into the software business, that's the easiest way to do it, actually. That and
Okay.
tester. Really, if you wanted to explore IT careers, and that's not what you're doing right now, explore a way to translate what you're doing now into a software career. Chances are you're going to be a business analyst or a tester.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I did wanted to ask you like if it's somebody out there listening and they're trying to decide on careers or
Hmm.
they're looking to go to college or if they've
Hmm.
already been to college, how would they get into like a software related career? Like what would be your advice? So,
Really, if you're pursuing the education, look for those summer internships. Look for all the internships that you can get. The more experience you get coming out of school is going to help. Is just going to pay off,
mhm.
because every company out there, they're like, oh, you're 22 with a degree, you have zero experience. Next, if you
Yeah.
have that, hey, I did this internship at Bank of America, for example, where we were doing X, Y, and Z project, and I applied my education to this sector. That's huge. That is a big, big, big deal. So the more of those types of opportunities you can pursue and achieve, the more highly sought after you will be. You will be a highly sought after employee because you'll not only have the skills, you'll have the experience. And that sells everything. That'll sell your resume over and over again. And consulting as follow up would be a consulting role. Taking consulting roles and learning different things, that's not a bad idea either. Obviously, your time is limited if you're a full time student, especially in the computer science field, but really look for those opportunities to do internships and get into the field as soon as possible.
Perfect. Thanks. I
Yeah,
appreciate that advice
no
because I
problem.
know, it's a struggle for a lot of people making that transition or just trying to figure out how because the job market is so competitive now. So it's just,
It is.
yeah,
It is, but on the one hand, on the other hand, there's lots of open jobs out there, and like I said,
yeah.
even though our segment, the software business or the IT field has the lowest percentage of unemployment, there's still a ton of jobs out there. Don't be discouraged because we have 1.5% and 2% unemployment. There's still lots of work out there. I get contacted
Hmm.
daily. You probably get contacted daily. Anybody that's ever done a role, especially as a consultant, they will get sought after. I guarantee it.
Hmm.
That these jobs are not going away tomorrow. And there's
Yeah.
lots of work out there, either contractually or W-2 or whatever. You can, if you're really looking for an opportunity to pursue this because it's out there, and you'll have work for probably the rest of your career.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely get a lot of emails and recruiters hitting me up on
Oh yeah,
LinkedIn, but I was
sure.
like, yeah, I'm good with where I'm
Yeah, me too.
at. Um, so I did wanted to ask you just to, kind of like what are some of your career, maybe like a career highlight and a career like low. I don't really know another way to say that, but I know you
Right,
mentioned like, being, on the same level of a guy with the Harvard degree. So,
right.
that's
That was
definitely
definitely a
one I
highlight.
would say.
Yeah, that was definitely a highlight. Really what I'm doing now, I really don't I really feel it's a career highlight because I don't think I could have done it had I not experienced what I experienced. In
Hmm.
other words, I don't think I could have achieved the success in my job that I have today without the experience I've had in the past 2 decades. Um, a low light would be, as 9 million other Americans experienced tragic job loss and loss of their home, from October of 2008 to March of 2010. That however many months span, I think that's about a year and a half. I only worked probably 4 months. And it was terrible positions. It was very
Hmm.
pedestrian, and really, I hate to use this term. It was kind of beneath my skill set to
Yeah.
take these jobs. But hey, we were in a different world then, and everybody's got to eat. So
Yeah.
that was kind of the lowest of the low for me. I had lost my position that fall, and then
Mm-hmm.
ended up not consulting for a whole almost another year. So that's not fun. Unemployment
Yeah.
is never fun, but when you're consultants, sometimes little breaks in between is a 6 or a 12-month contract that can be great, for a nice mental reset. But
Mm-hmm.
when it goes on for a long, long time, and you're interviewing and you're pounding the pavement, so to speak, it becomes frustrating. And
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of a low for me, as it was for many, many other people.
It definitely, I can. Well, I think I was in college during that time.
Yeah.
I was going back to grad school in 2009, so I
Hmm.
was working at Enterprise in 2008, and I quit that and went back to school. So it
There
didn't
you go.
affect me as much, but I definitely, heard a lot of the horror stories about how that affected a lot of people and just their
Oh yeah.
family and livelihood. So that I could definitely see that being a low spot
Hmm.
in your professional life.
For sure.
Um, what are some professional development resources that people who are in software could um, research or look at to help improve them in just you can do specific or in general if you want.
Sure. Actually, I can make a couple of recommendations. There's a Carnegie Mellon University has the Software Engineering Institute, and there was a gentleman by the name of Watts Humphreys who attended there and instructed there, and he wrote a book about it, managing the software process. If you have any inclination about getting into the software business, I highly recommend this book. I also highly recommend the Software Engineering Institute website. I also recommend the Project Management Book of Knowledge uh, that's brought forth every year or every other year. I think they're on the seventh edition, and the sixth one was in 2019, so it might have been every 3 years. Not totally sure about that. That's the Project Management Institute. That's a good resource if you're really interested in business analysis and project management. That's a great resource to take a look at those two places. Um, Really, it's doing research, and there's different programs. You can go to different schools and take like a number of different programs and really, really widen your knowledge level in taking these like evening courses and stuff like that. It's not really, I hate to use the word course. It's more like a seminar and things of that nature. But it's definitely something to put on your resume.
No, we have to wrap it
Yeah.
up here soon. So did you want to let the people know where they can reach you at?
Yeah, I can be reached at my consulting email, bill at bhcenterprisellc.com. Or that's actually bhcenterprise.com. Bill at bhcenterprise.com. It's a Gmail account, so I'm constantly checking that if they want to reach out and catch me there.
Okay, cool. And I'll make sure that I put it in the caption, that contact
Great.
information and all those resources that you mentioned. Thanks for coming on the show again. It was a really
Thank you.
great conversation, and I
Yes,
appreciate it. Yeah.
I appreciate it too, and I had a good time. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.